Hi, everyone. My name is Melissa Goodwin. I am AGU Thriving Earth Exchange's Manager for Operations and Volunteer Engagement. Very excited to welcome and introduce you all to Marshall Curry, EPIC N's Program Manager. He's going to share with you more about the EPIC Network and how you can engage with them in your capacity of engagement with Thriving Earth Exchange and then also beyond. So Marshall, please take it away.
Thanks, Melissa. It's a pleasure to be here with you all today. She already introduced me, but I represent a network of organizations and individuals who make up what we call the EPIC Network. It stands for the Educational Partnerships for Innovation in Communities Network. And what we try to do is, I'll give you our mission statement in just a second, but really what we're trying to do is blur that line that's in between the two images in the middle of that screen. We really want to try and help universities unite with their local government and community partners and share resources that exist in the university that may be more available than in the past due to some things we figured out in using what we call the EPIC model. But again, our mission as an organization is to connect universities and the needs of local governments to improve the quality of life for all involved. We're a 501c3 nonprofit association, similar to AGU, I think. I'm not sure about their 501c3 status, but we operate very similarly in that we're trying to support the folks in our network, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but that's our mission. We're supported currently by our membership. A lot of the institutions that were involved in the founding of our organization have contributed financial dollars to support our work. The Ford Foundation also supports our work, and the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation have also provided monetary support to keep us in operation. We were established officially as a nonprofit in 2018, and I am one of the staffers, and I'll tell you a little bit more about me in just a minute. But this brings us to our first question that Melissa prompted me with, and so I'll go ahead and answer this one, but she might interject and ask some of them in the future. Who's involved, right? We're a nonprofit association. Who's our membership? That's a big, important question. We have about 55 active institutional members, and there's about 120 to 150 individuals who are regularly emailing throughout our network to me or to staff, either from those institutions or from institutions considering membership. To figure out who is kind of the active members, the active institutions, you can go ahead and go to our website, epicn.org, and or you can use this See Map Here slide that Melissa will share with you at the end of the presentation, or we'll link in the presentation at some point, I'm sure. You can just click on that link and it'll take you right to this map page, and you can click on the blue EPIC Universities button. It'll bring out a list of all the universities involved, and each one of those blue dots is are those universities on the map, and you can click on each one and find little profiles about each of the member institutions. We're going to talk about that probably later towards the end of the presentation, but in short, those blue dots are who are involved in the network, and those green dots are the communities that we've partnered with and been able to write stories. We've been partnering with a lot more communities, but we just haven't written as many stories about them. An important anecdote or secondary note I should share about who is involved is, how are we all connected? Like, what brings us together in this network? And that's the EPIC model. Again, I'm going to spare you the full detailed presentation of the EPIC model and just provide you with a link to our website page that has a short animation and also defines the key elements of the EPIC model. And really, it's the form of which all of our programs, all of our member institutions take in their programming and how they set up their community partnerships. And so that's really the backbone of all of our programs. They're all using what we call the EPIC model to structure their programming and their partnerships. A lot of our programs will adapt it for locations, similar to, I think, how you all at Thriving Earth Exchange will change your projects for local context. And so it's very similar to that, where we're kind of using the same framework, but we'll see differences in Indiana because it's rural, or we'll see differences in Florida and Texas where we have programs. There's little differences between all the programs, but they're all trying to keep that EPIC model core thing.
So Marshall, how does EPIC support the universities that are part of your network?
Great. Yeah, that's actually the big part of my job, is I spend time creating what we call the member commons, which is kind of our password protected member site. And also I spend time creating other resources that are outside of the member commons, but a lot of the resources are there. And you can actually go follow that link to the member commons, and we'll have some information, I think, here pretty soon. Melissa and I are working on this. Didn't quite get it done for the presentation, but hopefully for the recording this will be done. We'll prompt you with some links of how you can go in and actually explore the member commons. But in short, what we do is we provide a startup toolkit and resources that are basically like a thumb drive or a Google Drive folder full of template documentation that our programs have used in the past to run their programs, so that way each university can take and use them and recreate them how they see fit. We run a newsletter that helps share about upcoming opportunities for coordination, sharing, various different pieces of the EPIC network puzzle, and organizational events as well. We put together trainings and conferences each year, and then what our members get is now open to everyone. So it's kind of, this is an older picture. It's basically everyone can get access to all these things right now. Our board of directors allowed any university who wants to try and help with the response and recovery effort for COVID to receive free membership for the time being. So the schematic's a little outdated, but they all receive access to the Learning Commons, which has, again, access to that toolbox I just mentioned of all the documents. It has a forum space for programs to communicate with one another. It has a course section similar to the LMS that Melissa provides, I think through Canvas or the other system to you all. It's similar to that, where we provide training and lessons on how do you run an EPIC program. And then also in that space is what we call a project library. And again, we'll talk about that probably a little bit more later, but it's basically a ginormous database of about 1,700 or 1,200 projects, hoping to be 1,700 soon, listed from our programs that they've operated or run with various community partners. We did a big database project and brought that all into one place so our programs could use it to help with their operations. I offer a lot of technical assistance to our members, just one-on-one, talking with them. We connect them to each other. We have a listserv. We offer Qualtrics license to our members, so that way they can do the surveying and coordination and engagement measurement that they'd like. We provide support for that operation. That's what the evaluation optimization support is. And then we provide a space on our website to feature them all and help them apply for funding opportunities as a group. So those are all the different things that we're putting together to support our members. But a lot of the time it's just the one-on-one conversation, helping connect people to resources and people.
Well, Marshall, I know EPIC has a small staff. What does your day-to-day role look like making this all happen?
Yeah, and the end of that last answer kind of really jumps into this nicely. We are really small because, as I mentioned, we were just established in 2018. So I'm like our only full-time staffer at this time, and the majority of my job employs me to bring out all of these past experiences that I've had in different roles in my career. I've actually participated as a student in some of the EPIC programs and researched them, and been a community partner who hosted programs similar to an EPIC program. And so during my day-to-day, I bring out that experience a lot in the conversations I have with our what we call program managers, the folks who are running our member institutions. And the majority of my time I'm spending providing support to them, either and during a day-to-day, back to the question, I'll have like 2 or 3 meetings with individual programs, just asking them about what are you working on, What help do you need? How can we make it easier? Sometimes the questions are more about, how do we coordinate as a network, and they'll help me figure out ways they want to grow the network, and we'll work on that. But the majority of the time, it's working on their support issues, whatever they might be. Some of our older programs are thinking more about funding and evaluation and report writing, whereas the newer programs are just, how do we start this thing? How do we meet a community partner who's willing to do this big of a project? But then about 40% of my day is usually spent just admin, board, nonprofit type expertise, running the organization. So I'm talking with our board of directors. I'm talking with partner orgs like Thriving Earth Exchange to see how we can work together. I'm answering emails and doing the budget, those kind of things.
So EPIC and Thriving Earth Exchange share a lot of goals and principles. From where you sit, from EPIC's perspective, what do EPIC and resources help unlock in local communities?
I love this question because it is truly an unlock that we see. Like, our programs are not like some other programs where we're not creating anything new. And I think that's really similar to Thriving Earth Exchange's mentality, is you're not trying to create new things. You might be trying to create innovations or help solve problems that may seem new, but you're using assets in the university or in the community that exists to help make that happen. And that's what the EPIC programs that I support do at a local level. They find assets, capital, innovative thinkers, extra resource, extra, like I think one of our schools is thinking about using their maker shop plaza and opening that up to the community partner that's involved. So physical assets, they're really good at thinking about those physical assets and those just capital and creative thinking assets on campus, and unlocking them so that way local communities can use them. And so again, I mentioned this, but there's been we're thinking about 1,700. I have about 1,200 of them on record, but since that time, a whole academic year has gone by. So we think there's about 1,700 community identified projects that have unlocked, again, a bunch of innovation and creativity. And to give you an example of just one of those, like the unlocked outcomes, I've added these next few slides. So Lemon Grove the city of Lemon Grove is in California, and it is an example of one of the community partners who an EPIC program, this one is the SAGE project at San Diego State University, who partnered with them and the outcomes they received. So you can see here the inputs that were unlocked through the model from the university. They got 30 classes, 700 or more students, about 3,000 hours of their time. Those students and the faculty that were helping guide them through the process represented 17 disciplines and created 7 projects. And there was over 19 faculty involved in the effort. That's the inputs, what was unlocked from those inputs, that was directed toward the city of Lemon Grove, is something that Mike James, the assistant city manager and director of the public works at City of Lemon Grove, says was up to a remarkable 800% return on their initial investment, because the community did pay a little bit of money for this project to happen. And what were those outcomes that were 800% return on investment? There was an urban agricultural analysis that was done. They did a course on expanding GIS mapping, mapping out all the street signs, because their staff just didn't have time to go out and map all the street signs, but students did. They revitalized 2 downtown locations by sending out or providing a development plan. They reimagined ideas for a homeless problem in town, a homelessness problem. They wanted to increase housing. They created some new community gardens. They created social media interactions, and actually designed 2 brand new murals. You can actually see one of them on our website on like the case story page for this actual engagement. So, and there's like students who are helping younger kids from the community paint the mural. So it's a really cool interaction of like the community partners who are helping coordinate this mural, the students who are designing it, and then mentoring younger community residents who want to help paint it. It's a really cool story. And then they also put together one of the first cities in North America to provide what the United, like a climate change plan, and to adopt the United Nations toolkit to do that. And I think the city wanted to have it done because there's a California state initiative to get all of the cities to create one of these plans. I don't know enough about the details. Again, it's on our website, but they did an amazing job at helping Lemon Grove become a leading city in California by completing one of these climate change plans ahead of time, or ahead of others in the community. There's a couple more. One that I just found out about came from the city of Auburn in Washington. We just got an email about this. They got an update from the city council at Auburn, Washington, and you can see that kind of update in that link that I put on this slide. They also were doing kind of a downtown revitalization that incorporated a mural, and there were 3 students who were architectural students. They redesigned an alleyway to become a community space, and you can see the designs and kind of the original intent and plan and what's going to actually happen looking at that link. And you can see the inputs that came out from University of Washington to this, but this is just one, or I guess I shared 2 total examples of what's unlocked when an EPIC program uses the EPIC model, builds a partnership, maybe uses some of our resources, and puts together a project. And so the big difference between like our programs and a Thriving Earth Exchange project is that we're working with existing courses on a university campus primarily. There's other things we incorporate, but we're really trying to focus on using existing courses to meet that local government or community need. And we're trying to do it at scale. So we're trying to do multiple projects at the same time. And that's kind of what you've seen in these 2 examples. They had 16 classes at the city of Auburn, and they had 19 faculty and 30 classes for the city of Lemon Grove for their partnership. So just very large in their commitment. Some of our programs are smaller. They'll do like 2 or 3 projects in an academic year and 2 or 3 courses, and that's awesome too. We love that as well. But we can unlock a pretty sizable commitment to these communities, which is really important, or really crucial for our model and what we like to see. I'll sum that one up.
That's a great distinction to flag. So definitely differences in approach. How do you see Thriving Earth Exchange then supporting local EPIC programs?
Right, and I really am so excited to talk about this because Melissa and I have been talking about this for a long time, and we've shared a little bit with our EPIC members about how we think this could work, but I really wanted to get in the room with you all and the amazing people who make Thriving Earth Exchange happen and share this idea with you, because I think as I went about doing these local projects when I was in that space of my life, we would wrap up a project and then I would feel so much momentum and so much excitement and just be kind of upset that it just ended, right? And I think that that's where the 2 organizations can help out. And so I put together this little schema because I don't know how else to organize my thoughts. And I think that this is a really quick and easy way, even though there's a lot of text on the slide. So I'll break it down a little bit for you. The first box is that we can just be a connection to communities together. So for example, if you are wrapping up a project or you're in the middle of a project and you just want to have someone else to back you up or to bring resource or to know that you're doing this project, connecting with an EPIC program might be really cool. Because even if they don't help at all or there's no reason to help, maybe they're just knowledgeable of the work you're doing. So that way they can help or unlock other resources in the future, maybe years from now, based on the work that you're completing today. You might also be able to provide connections to our partners, our programs, those EPIC programs, in that you might have ideas of communities for them to work with that you've had past relationship with. And that is a huge, huge benefit to our members if you are willing to share those things, because they're constantly looking for new partners, community partners to work with. The next major box, I'm just gonna like skim over these, and if we want to go into Q&A about any of these, we can. But the next one is like insights and intel. As our EPIC programs are working, and as text fellows and faculty are working, they're each building a knowledge of what's actually going on in that community at a scale or at a level that Melissa and I will never get to, because we're so centralized in our offices. And sometimes even more so than the EPIC and program managers, because they're sometimes not as much on the ground, especially if it's a newer partner who's coming online and might be thinking about an EPIC partnership. And so if Thriving Earth Exchange fellows or faculty and EPIC and program managers are able to talk about the local level, it will really help with the insights and intel about, you know, what's the main, you know, what's going on the ground with this community. Is there a way the EPIC program can help? Is there a way a text fellow could help an EPIC program in their courses? There might be a GIS course, and you might be working on a GIS project as a part of the Thriving Earth Exchange, and you could potentially talk about those projects and what's actually going on the ground as they're happening, or even after the fact. Which kind of leads me to this third box. Is there a way that there's a kind of a co-generation or resourcing around the end of your project or the end of an EPIC End project? So if one of the partners in an EPIC End program has a GIS project and it wraps up, but they need somebody with some expertise to do step 4, 5, and 6, but the academic year's over, the partnership's over, it might be really cool to hand that project off to a fellow, or vice versa. And I know many of you are in the middle of fellowship projects, so if you get to the end of your fellowship project and there's a long list of things that you really want to have, or that you present as recommendations to the community, and they're not sure where to go to get those done, or they don't have capacity for it, an EPIC program could be a great place to take those recommendations and say, hey, here's a body of work the community is looking to have done. I noticed that you're in the area. I introduced them to you. I mean, I took the local government to your website and they're interested. Maybe they could work together in the future, and to continue the recommendations and the work that you've done after you've wrapped up your part of the project. And Melissa, I'm going to bring you in because I'm like, I think I covered everything I wanted to cover, but I want to make sure this is kind of something we've worked on together. So I'm not sure if this fits really well.
Yeah, no, it does. Thriving Earth Exchange projects they're short-term relatively. They're kind of a moment in time, because EPIC and member programs are universities. They're physically there. They're not going away. So this could be, this kind of connectivity can be great for providing more long-term resources and engagement opportunities for communities.
Yeah, and one other thing I'll add before I go to the next slide is, you know, Melissa and I are thinking about how do we do these 3 buckets or these 3 ideas from our standpoint, but really we don't know enough about, again, the on the ground look of things to really do it justice all the time. And so that's why I wanted to bring it up with you all and those of you watching the recording. You are going to be the first ones to understand if a beneficial relationship at the local level will make sense. And so we need your help kind of elevating that idea of like, hey, I'm wrapping up my project and I'm seeing there's some potential work that needs to be done. I'll send it to Melissa to say, hey, is there an EPIC End program that could help with this? You know, that's kind of what we're looking for, and why I wanted to bring it up is I can't have eyes on to all the projects and their final outcomes as much as Melissa can, and Melissa not as much as you can as individual fellows. So if you're thinking about that in your local community, that's hopefully this slide can help you figure out a way to keep those projects going if you get to the end and you're worried about that. Next slide.
Yeah, so we've been talking quite a bit about beyond a project. What about during? How can Thriving Earth Exchange stakeholders, projects, individuals engage an EPIC member?
Right, so I was thinking about this, and I was looking, I think, a little bit at your how you all set up your projects, and I know you have the 4-stage process, and I think there's some resources that could help in one of the earlier stages, and then some resources that could help in the later stages. So the first, in the earlier stages, we have this project library I mentioned earlier. It's I'll probably show it after I get done with the slides, like kind of at the end of this presentation. But it's basically a large database that you can filter by university department, and I'm going to add a filter in the near future of community or like local government departments or policy area. We also have them coded by the Sustainable Development Goals from the UN. So you can go in, adjust the filters for, let's say you're looking for a project that's addressing hunger, so you'd go to the SDGs, number 2, no hunger, and it'll pull up the individual projects around our network on that issue. You can look at those projects and see a brief abstract of what they did. And you can also see the contact information most of the time for the program that ran it and the faculty involved and sometimes the community involved, or always the community involved, sometimes the faculty involved. And the program and myself will be able to put you in touch with any of those people if you'd like. But the main benefit is you can see a link to their student report or like the final report that they provided. And again, that kind of abstract of that project. And so as you're starting to scope these things with your community partners, it could be really valuable to you to have a menu of 5 or 6 other projects like the one you're proposing to show that community and say, here are 6 similar projects on a similar issue. What do you like from these 6? What do you not like from these 6? And maybe incorporate that as an option. The other thing is you could, instead of using them as an example of a project, you could use them as a resource bed or a research bed or a research body of people to contact as you're doing your project, right? So you're working on a certain state and you're doing a certain project and you're realizing maybe I could contact a few other experts in this type of policy area. This project library could also help you find those type of experts across the country, where you could go into this project library, again, filter for no hunger, and see 5 or 6 different faculty who are working on this with their students, and maybe call them up and see if they have any suggestions based on your community's need. So that's the beginning stages. Later stages, or middle stages, I guess, is I really think just if you're near a program and you want to find out if there's university resources to help with the project you're working on, or if you want to celebrate the end of your project and include more people, I can help introduce you to those EPIC End programs near you. So feel free to reach out, or you can use the network map that's linked there again to share about your ideas and your project, and we can connect you to those program managers. And that each one of them have different resources available to them at their fingertips, and so they might have different things to offer. Or they might be very busy, which is kind of the case at most times of the year, and they'll keep note of what you're doing and share about it and just be knowledgeable of what you're doing. But most of the time they're pretty friendly and pretty open to talking with anyone in the community they're working in. So that's another thing they can help with during a project. Oh, I have control of slides. Sorry. Next slide.
Yeah, so this one is getting to folks who are based at universities. Best case scenario, the university does have a local EPIC program, but how can someone connect with EPIC if their university doesn't have one?
Right, so one, you can still use the map again to kind of see if your program's close or your project's close to an EPIC map or an EPIC program. We have a lot of new programs coming online all the time, and also programs who are who might be doing something one year that's up on the website, but the next year they might be focused on something else and it's not on the website yet. So the biggest thing is here, just if you're not sure, reach out. And 2, if you really aren't finding anything, we're really interested in starting more local programs, and that's something that we could do together and I'm willing to help individuals kind of take on that effort of finding an EPIC program near them. The other thing that my job has led me to become a little bit better at is knowing who at universities are doing similar projects to EPIC-N projects. So that way, even if they don't have an EPIC program, I can still, I'm offering that because even if they don't have an EPIC program, there's potentially and probably some type of office doing something similar, but just not quite the same way as that EPIC model that we talked about. And I can quickly find out who those people are for you and can help connect you to them, and maybe discuss, starting an EPIC program if that's really what you want to do at your home university, or just discuss all the different types of engagement options that they could explore if they're not already doing some of them. I think that gets the question. Yeah. Okay. Finally, I think I'm done. I'll show the project library, I think, if that's okay, Melissa. And but here's my contact information for those of you who are attending. I look forward to hearing your questions as I'm opening up the project library. You can either chat them, or I know there's a handful of you, so if you want to unmute and ask, feel free. And then also for those of you on your recording, feel free to reach out any of the ways that you'd like based on your preferred contact method of choice that I have available to me. And Melissa, thank you for giving me the opportunity. I'll open up the project library unless you have anything else you want to ask before I do that.
No, thank you, Marshall. I'll defer to whether anyone in the group here has questions for you.
Awesome. So we're still kind of in beta. We're working on bringing in some other visually appealing aspects to this, but here's the project library. And again, as you're unmuting and asking questions, I'm just going to click around. And if anyone wants me to slow down and go back or speed up, feel free to also add that as you're chatting or unmuting. Any questions, thoughts?
As you're going through the project library, I'd love to see any California projects.
Okay. Bad link on that one. I will go find a California one right now. Do you have a preferred California university? Because I only have a few, but I have definitely these three and San Diego State.
Just any, I'm just curious to see what's going on.
Okay. So as you're using our library, the university will pop up on the left, the program name will be in the middle, any kind of metric or demographic information about the project or the community partner will show up on the left, and then the most important information will be the abstract in the middle there of the page. And you can see this individual project was focusing on, it was an original student research project looking at the city's Proposition D, which is a local sales and use tax increase. So really getting into the nitty-gritty of some city policy. And then underneath the abstract will generally be, not always, but generally be a URL link to the actual report that the program provided to the community after the students wrapped up their work. Usually students are very involved in the creation of these reports. Sometimes they're not reports, sometimes they're other types of documentation or resource or asset, but you can click around once you get access to this. And you can, as you can see, it's a 62-page document. I won't scroll through all of it, obviously, but they're very well done reports, and the community gets a lot out of it. And you can quickly come through the project library, maybe skim the executive summaries of them, and usually they have recommendations in the executive summary of some kind, or just skip down to the recommendations is a good way to get through it, or look at their individual graphics in the reports. They're always pretty well done. And then underneath, unfortunately, our database doesn't have very much contact information for this project, but you can usually get them from the individual student reports on the first page or the first couple pages of them. They'll talk about which class they were in, who participated, that kind of thing. And then also they'll have, generally speaking, you could always go back to the EPIC map, look up this program, and there'll be contact information for the program there. Again, we're working on some ways to make that a little bit easier and less click heavy to find that information, but we're still in kind of version 1 of this tool.
Do you get a lot of requests for contact information or that kind of network, or do people mostly come to peruse the project stuff?
Well, yeah, I mean, in general, with what I know and have experienced is being a part of a couple of different nonprofit associations, is your mailing list is always extremely sought after by different companies who want to use it, period. And so we have to be, and we are very protective of that mailing list. So we don't give it in an Excel sheet. You'll see it like that in a different pages. So if somebody's going to go use our website and create their own Excel sheet, fine, because we know our individual member programs are getting a lot of credibility from us having their profiles on the website, and any of them we give them the option to retain their contact information if they want. So we are, because we're so new, we're also just getting the tools around people posting the projects in an efficient way. And so that's something we are getting more of, but it's still very small. It's mostly myself and a couple of student staffers going around getting all the information we can and putting it into a database. I don't know if that answered your question, but I think I got close. Okay. Are you involved in association as well, outside of your Thriving Earth Exchange experience? That was a very informed question.
Oh, are you asking me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in a couple of different projects, and I've definitely been the person who wanted a mailing list, so I was curious to see how you format them. Yeah. Or I was working with an academic who wanted a mailing list of different projects, and I was like, this seems like exploitation a little bit, but so then I was the one who was scraping the website to make it myself. Yeah.
Yeah, so anything in the project library is very much set up and offered by our membership with the intention of sharing to help others kind of do similar work. They're very open, transparent, friendly, amazing group of people, and I'm very thankful to be able to work with them. And so if you want to kind of create that list, you can feel comfortable creating that list, because they know that if you're creating that list, there's a potential benefit of future relationships with the localities and the faculty you're working with. So yeah, it's kind of a big helpful part for us. So hopefully you can keep doing that.
Since it seems like there's time, Marshall, do you want to talk a little bit more about the EPIC model? How does EPIC facilitate these projects? You've mentioned a few parts of it, like how you try to use existing courses at universities. What are some other components of how EPIC facilitates these programs?
Sure. I'll work on getting that page up in our main website that describes it, but the big starting point I have to mention first, I kind of forgot in the middle of the presentation, is that each of our members works autonomously. I think that's similar, and even more so than you all work with Melissa. I know Melissa kind of stewards and helps guide things as the year goes on, but she's really kind of on the start. She's involved in the beginning and then throughout the process, but we're not involved at that degree. I'm very jealous of how much Melissa gets to be involved, and we don't do that. So a lot of our programs are doing a lot of their stuff day to day autonomously. They're in charge of all the relationships at the local level. They're in charge of the official structure of their organization. They're in charge of how they take the EPIC model and use it. Now, what is that EPIC model? Go to the EPIC model page. And there's, again, a 2-minute animation here. I'm not going to play that for you right now. You can watch it on your own time. It's a high-level summary of what I'm about to talk through, and it's great. I love it. There's also more under resources. There's like a video tab, and you can go peek around at those videos, some of them. And there's actually a podcast on the EPIC model itself. It's pretty cool. And the Oregon program, it's an oldie but goodie, as I like to call it. Anyway, so the EPIC model, what is it? In general, this is what these are the 5 key elements that all of our programs try to employ throughout their work. Their partnerships respect existing administrative structures, individual responsibilities, and incentives on both, or on all sides. Sometimes there's multiple people involved, so I shouldn't say both. On all sides, the university, the local government, the community, they're trying to respect the existing administrative structures. That means like the existing work plans, the existing strategic plans, the existing courses, the existing faculty at the university campus. That's what we mean by existing. We really want this to be an asset-based partnership. We don't want people to have to go create new things, because that takes time and energy that many of us don't have. Create a genuine partnership with local governments or community organizations. So for the university folks in our network, we really want them to go out and really build relationship, build a partnership, sit down at the table and make sure everyone's on an equal footing as best as we can, or mutual footing. Might not be equal, it might be mutual. We want these to intentionally aim at improving quality of life, and our board has approved that we're going to start phasing in, intentionally aims at working towards those sustainable development goals. Doesn't matter which one, we just want it to be working on one of those sustainability development goals. We also want the partnerships to focus on, again, that community identified driven, and this is key for this one, evaluated contribution to the community. We want our programs to evaluate the work they do and help the communities evaluate the work they do. So that way, 2 or 3 years after the partnership happens, everyone knows what was the impact of that work. Was it worth it? What did we do right? What did we do wrong? How can we improve? And finally, we want to catalyze multiple disciplines and large numbers of assets, or those existing resources on both sides, to be brought to bear on that issue, on that need. And that takes that's the 30 or so project I shared earlier across, with 19 faculty across 7 or so disciplines at San Diego State. That's kind of that key element here. We really want to work within some type of finite time frame, usually 1 to 3 academic years, to really catalyze multiple courses, potentially some other resources on that issue, and make it push the momentum and the excitement and the sharing and the collaboration and the innovation all at one kind of defined time period. And that's the EPIC model. I mean, there's a few bullet points under each of them that I could go into even more in depth, but I'll save at this point. If you have further questions, we could talk about it. But those are the 5 that all of our programs across the world start with, and they begin to adapt a little bit here and there. And I'm really in this work because it works well. Like if I wasn't thinking the model was good, I wouldn't be associated with the program, because I have a long background in multiple different fields of engagement, from my volunteer manager experience to working a lot as an undergraduate in my community service learning office. And there's a lot of other really great models for community engagement that I would work with if this one wasn't really good. But this one is really good, so I'm not leaving yet. This one works well and has good outcomes. So I'll leave it there, I think. Is it good? That's the EPIC model summary. But again, I'd go listen to that podcast because it's great. Especially, it gives a lot of good talking points about like how do you approach certain groups of people and talk about engagement, not just the EPIC model and what we do, but like engagement in general and like building a project together. There's some good talking points in there too.
Thanks, Marshall, for going into that. Does anyone else have any questions? Any further questions?
All right.
Yeah, let's leave it there then. So I will share this recording, and Marshall, if you're okay with it, the slides with everyone who registered. And we'll include all these links as well so folks can browse the EPIC website more. Marshall shared his contact information. I'll be sure to include that prominently as well. And anyone who's interested in talking more, please don't hesitate to reach out to him. You can feel free to include me as well, and we'll make sure that we really get everything linked up and support you however best.
Yeah, and we're hoping, or I'm hoping, before I let Melissa share all of it, I've worked out some type of link that will suggest where you should go to log in to the member commons and the library feature, because I really think that's a great place for you all to get some benefit out of as you approach the work you're doing right now. But right now it's also password protected and you have to sign up for a bunch of things, and I want to make sure it's really easy for you all.
Yeah, thanks for doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, let's end it. Thank you again so much, Marshall, for sharing with us. Thank you all for joining us, and be in touch with some more soon. Thanks for
the opportunity. Bye,
yeah,
all.
thanks so much. That's definitely given
thank
me a
you.
lot to think about. So I'm pretty excited to explore that with my local university and with our project. So
good.
Oh,
good.
great. Good. That's good to hear. Thank you.